No one cares about your career more than you do. Being open-minded and taking the opportunities that are in front of you. There's always something that you're going to take from that experience that's going to make you better at the next thing that you're doing. Be curious, try a little bit of everything. If you're putting that energy out there, you're going to get things back. Every day can be a restart of like, okay, that happened yesterday, what am I going to do today?
Heidi, thank you very much for being here today and doing this podcast with me.
No problem.
So you are a partner at Carttera. You oversee all of asset management. You lead all the operations on leasing, asset management across development and all of your stabilized assets. You've had a very impressive career. You've held a bunch of senior positions at Canadian REITs. You serve on U of T's Real Estate Advisory Committee. You're on Aiken's Real Estate Advisory Committee. You have been a personal friend and mentor of mine for a few years. So I'm really excited to do this podcast with you today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
You are the first podcast I am doing.
I know, yes, and I am greatly appreciated. It's all going to go great.
Yeah.
So why don't we just start quickly, give us a little overview on Carttera and what you guys are up to, what's your day-to-day, and yeah, we'll start there.
Sure. So I've been at Carttera now for 8 years, as you mentioned, partner of asset management. And so Carttera is a fund manager, developer, asset manager, predominantly in GTA and Montreal. So we have closed-end fund structures with Canadian pension funds, and we develop in urban intensification assets and across all asset classes. So over the 20 years, we've built these relationships with our pension fund partners. They put the faith in us that we will select assets depending on what the market needs at that time. And so that's obviously shifted over the years.
Yeah, for sure.
And so currently we're focused on so we've shifted away from condos and we're moving into the multifamily space with purpose-built rental. And then industrial has been our focus the last few years and continues to be. So we have 3 million square feet of industrial in various forms in the pipeline, whether it is under construction or in being stabilized right now. So that's a big focus with our leasing team. And then we have over 1 million square feet of office as well, and some that we're currently leasing, some that has been leased. And then we said over 1,000 units that are under development through the multifamily
Very
space.
cool, yeah.
Yeah, so lots on the go.
Yeah.
It's keeping our team busy, predominantly focused on the leasing side.
Yep.
So we are... we've got some really great people on the ground working on getting those leases in place.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, even just Carttera as a whole, like you guys are a pretty small team, pretty lean, and like pretty entrepreneurial. Have you found like I feel like you're pretty in the weeds of like the day-to-day stuff as well. And I guess just based off that, how are you finding the market right now? You have a bunch of different asset classes, so different challenges that way. Is there one that's kind of a bit more worrisome, or one that you're like pretty excited about and like there's actually some momentum on some of the projects?
I'd say I'm excited about all the projects, and that's what as you mentioned, small team, and that's one of the reasons why I was drawn to Carttera. And although they've been around for 20 years, they still have that entrepreneurial spirit while doing a lot. And so we have this really great team. The office is just over, I think we're 26 people now, and that has sort of maintained a consistent size over the years. And we just have a lot of people that are really good at what they do. We're all very driven, and then we get to work with partners that are best for the projects that we have on the go. Yeah. And so right now, yes, our focus is the leasing of industrial space and office space. And both of them have had their different challenges over the last few years. Don't need to go into a lot of detail. Everybody is
for sure.
fully familiar with what's happening in the market right now.
We hear it every day. It's in our face every day.
But what I think our superpower is we can move quickly on things because we are a small shop. All the decision makers get together on a regular basis, and so we can make decisions, we can move deals along, and so we can also pivot where we need to on a strategy perspective, depending on what is happening in the market. And so industrial is changing very quickly. Still think that industrial is a great space to be in. It's more stabilized. And that's literally what's happening both on the office side and on the industrial side now. Market dynamics are shifting and they're stabilizing. And so we're just coming into more normal markets. We always, being developers, our intention, and I think we've been successful on this, is to bring best-in-class space to the market. And so if groups are
like, your projects speak for themselves.
And so if groups are out there looking for space, we have it in, like, if they want to check the boxes on sustainability and high performance, both on the office and the industrial side. And now we'll be transitioning into the purpose-built rental side as well in doing that. So it's really just being patient for the right deals and the right tenants that are going to complement the assets that we have.
Yeah, I mean, you even just made a comment of like, you guys can make decisions really quickly. That, just even from my experience in the industry, I was on the third party side and had a few different clients, and the ones that could make decisions quick, that is like, it really is a superpower because you're losing, with things changing so rapidly, you have to be able to kind of make decisions quick, get the deals done. Otherwise, it's great that that's kind of your guys' focus internally.
And also just being able to be on the ground. And that's one thing that I love about the industry too, is we try to be on all tours with our brokers. We always partner with brokers to be able to get that market knowledge and as well, and that quick feedback as to what's happening. But we're there on tours. We're trying to meet the tenants. We're trying to understand is really what our goal is to deliver the best space for tenants so that they can operate their businesses as effectively.
And you need that face time with them too.
And so that all just contributes to then being able to, okay, what do you need? And then let's put together the best proposal that we can. And sometimes we're not able to achieve what it is that they're looking for right now, but then we can also give a very quick response on that of like, okay, I would love to do work with you, but just don't think that our interests are aligned on this particular deal.
So the podcast, as you know, is not overly real estate focused. So appreciate you going into an overview of Carttera. But yeah, this is really just to kind of get to know you. And I just want to start with your origin story. So I know just from knowing you, you're not from Toronto.
No.
So why don't you give us a little background on you and your story?
Sure. So I grew up in a small town, and when I say small, 400 people.
Not small like Winnipeg, very small, So
about 400 people. It was 400 people when I was there. It's still about that size. So very unique upbringing, and I loved all of it. It was a very idyllic childhood from that perspective, and I grew up on a farm, so that's the other element, and it was very much a farming community. And so
work ethic in you from day one.
Exactly. So I, as I said, a great childhood, loved being on the farm, but also knew that that wasn't what I always wanted to do. But we didn't really travel with farmers. You don't have the ability of being able to just leave and come back. And so the only opportunities I really got to see Toronto was we had a couple farming conferences, and then as well in high school, a couple trips. And every time I came here, I was like, this is an incredible place.
It's like night and day from what you know.
Exactly. There was excitement. There was so much going on. Just the big buildings. It was just entirely different. And so being that was really the only other place I had traveled to, I was like, I would like to go there whenever I am done school. And so...
And was school a thing that you knew you wanted to do? Like, did your parents want you to go to school?
No, that was not something... It just wasn't really a thing that was talked about or... in my small town, yes, there were other kids that were talking about going to university. So that's really how it got into my head of, okay, well, that's just sort of the natural next step that people do. And so started looking at schools and decided on University of Guelph as kind of being a good transition to go from small town to not. It's still a city, but it just felt safer in some way to transition out. And so did that, and still like really had no concept. Like it was literally, I would like to go from here to Toronto, and I had a number of different jobs growing up outside of the farm but none of them were in an office. And so I just had it in my head that I would like to work in an office and not have to wear steel-toed boots and be outside all day. And that was kind of it. So wasn't really sure where that was. Like I changed my degree 3 times. Like I just couldn't even decide what I wanted to do. So had shifted from applied sciences to the arts and then landed in business. From there, it was like, okay, I literally graduated and moved to Toronto the next day and just needed a job. Like that was, I knew a couple people here in the city. Thankfully, I had a good friend from high school who was here. So I had somebody that understood where I came from and sort of that safety net, as I called it.
Yeah, because it is very intimidating.
Yes.
Yeah, I moved here too, but like at least from another city. But yeah, it's intimidating if you don't know this world.
So yeah, you learn about these things quickly when you get here.
Course.
And so was handing out resumes and landed at an insurance company as I needed a job and really didn't like it. So continued. It was data entry, and I was like, I cannot be doing this forever.
Yeah.
So kept handing out.
This can't be what it's supposed to be like in the city.
This cannot be the dream that I had of like being in an office building. Like I'd much rather be outside at this point.
Yeah.
So then continued handing out resumes every time I would meet somebody, and then that's how I landed in real estate. So I took on the role of assistant property manager, or assistant to an assistant property manager at the original, starting right there, at the original Summit REIT. And I say the original Summit REIT because there have been some iterations. So started, and their offices were near the airport in an industrial building, or sort of like flex office in an industrial park. So again, not exactly, but stepping stones.
Yeah.
And so that was my first taste of real estate, and starting on the property management side. And after a year so I kind of given myself a deadline of, if I do not like this in a year, then I'll go back to school, become a lawyer, something. But was like, okay, I'll write it out. I always give myself a timeline on something. And as I said, ended up loving it and loved the diversity of it, where there was every day was something different. And
especially on the property management side, because I was going to say, what was that moment that you knew? But if that's kind of what you're looking for, because it's all over the map. So I guess that's what played into it.
Yeah. You never knew what your day was going to look like. You would have a game plan, and then you'd get phone calls, and unfortunately, in property management, no one calls you with happy news. No. It is always they have a roof leak. They're complaining about something in their lease. So a great understanding of lease agreements early on, having to collect rent, and so that is not always pleasant. And negotiating payment contracts with groups that were having difficulty, but you got to know the businesses, you got to really understand the fundamentals of real estate, and I think that is it's such a benefit to what I do now in asset management by having that baseline to start with, getting to know tenants, getting to know leases, and getting to know what it's actually like to manage buildings and be the boots on the ground.
Well, especially for what you're doing now, like that's such a great spot to start, and then obviously build on that as you're going through your career. But that's a really great way to start, because you are seeing all aspects of it.
Yeah, for sure. And so it was incredibly interesting, and that's where I met another really great friend. We both started around the same time. And so friend number 2 now in the city, and that was sort of the other, just sort of, I think, for having a friend, a really good friend, and if you've got more in your workplace, that's really great. But just somebody, especially early on, sort of first real job, like learning like how to navigate being in an office environment and everything else. So it was really beneficial to sort of see me through and help me feel comfortable in the big city.
And I guess in those early days too, so you're saying like, friend number 2, how did you start to kind of create a home in Toronto and build your community here? And I just know from you and I talking, like your community is very real estate focused with a lot of your friends and the way that things go. So it was that kind of early on. Did you know that's the route you wanted to go with building your community here, or did it just kind of grow as you went?
I literally knew nothing. So it was, as I said, I just came here, and it was like this goal to be here, and that was sort of it.
Yeah.
And it was more just, I don't want to fail. Like, I just have to figure out of how can I stay here? How can I build a life here?
Yeah.
And so I realized through those experiences that yes, having that network is really important. And just naturally, like I was throwing everything into my work because there was really nothing. And I also didn't have any financial means to really be doing anything else. It was more about
those days too from the beginning.
We're just working very hard. You need to pay off student debt, need to just get some money to move and just be in other parts of the city and experience the city, because that was a big part of also coming from a small town and now being in this city where there are just so many endless possibilities.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to take that in and enjoy it at the same time. So
Yeah,
it was
for sure.
really about working hard to be able to generate some savings and be able to make sure that I could have a job that could support a life here.
Yeah.
And that's hard
Which
in
is
the
hard.
beginning.
Yeah, of course.
I was living with roommates and
Yeah.
it was at survival mode
Yeah, I
early
even think
on.
my first couple of years here, I was working full time and then I was doing side jobs as well because I knew I wanted to be here.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got to make some sacrifices because it is hard at the beginning when you don't have the financial means, but you're like, this is all I want.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was, as you said, it was very much like survival mode
Yeah.
early on, but just also like, okay, I think I like this.
Yeah.
So can this be a career where I want to stay, and
Yeah.
what does that look like?
Yeah.
So taking on as many different responsibilities as I could within the organization, being on different committees, getting to know the different departments. And it was also just the first time I had worked in an office
Yeah.
with so many different people like that. And so it was really, that's whenever I became curious about people and their stories and just how can we work together?
Yeah,
and
of
even
course.
how can we be doing this better? And so I got a lot of leeway to be able to do that too, just continuing to improve processes and be involved in a lot of different projects.
Yeah.
But then I also knew that this wasn't going to be the space for me to continue to do that on and expanding my career path sort of in the way that I
Yeah.
started to envision at that point.
Yeah, so let's go into that too. So obviously, from the early days in property management now to being partner at Carttera, you have held some impressive roles at some like very well-known companies. So walk us through your career path because I think that's something that you and I have bonded over, and I've really taken into consideration when I've made some decisions too, because you've had a few different roles. Some of those have changed by choice, some of them by not. So walk us through your career path.
Sure. So from being at Summit and on the property management side, I knew I wanted to make a change. And so a recruiter had called about an asset management role at White Rock.
Okay,
White
yeah.
Rock no longer exists now, it had been purchased. And I literally had to Google what asset management was before the interview.
I've done that Google search before too. Yeah.
Still, it's hard. Everybody has a different definition of it. I have learned, but I was literally like, okay, I need some sort of baseline going into this. And so and for anyone that is familiar with White Rock, they had just come out of trying to sell unsuccessfully the company and was quite small, and so had a new focus of growth and let's build this up and let's make it into something really impressive. And so started there as director of asset management, and again, not really fully understanding the role, or it was probably, I know I was in over my head, but that's where I really thrive of like, okay, I know I can do this. And let's figure it out.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm quite resourceful from that perspective. And so dove into it, and it was a smaller company, one big room. You could see everybody at one time, hear everybody at one time. So that was my first time working in an open office environment. It's not my favorite.
Yeah, fair.
But you learn from everybody very quickly. And so it was one of the hardest things that I've done, and one of the most challenging environments, but I learned so much in such a short period of time and was given so many opportunities, and even just beyond the job itself, we were acquiring assets across Canada, and I had never traveled. So it became this opportunity for me to go to all of these different places.
That probably added to the excitement too.
For sure. Like I think I'd been on a plane once before, and so suddenly I'm on, like, it's a couple times a month. I'm going somewhere and staying in hotels and going to look at assets, and we were acquiring mostly industrial assets, so not the most glamorous places.
Especially back then too. Like industrial wasn't really what it is now. Yeah.
Very dirt roads in the middle of Winnipeg could be swallowed. My rental car could be swallowed in potholes, kind of thing, and trying to navigate where we also didn't have the same technology. So trying to get cars with GPSs that are like, and a lot of map questing and Google Maps printed out, and just going by myself to these different places and checking out buildings. And so I found that so exciting because it was just something that I had never done before all of this travel and going to new places. And so just being involved on the acquisition side was new to me, and well, everything in this role was sort of new to me, but I really loved that aspect of it, of getting to intimately know the assets. And through the due diligence process, their due diligence process was incredibly detailed, and at the time it was I would sometimes roll my eyes at it, but I see the value in it now, and it made me a much better person, and it gave me a much better understanding of real estate. So I was doing that. We were growing teams because we were acquiring assets so quickly, and we determined that it would be better to internalize all of our property management and our accounting. So building systems for that and bringing people on board. So, and I enjoy that as well, of building teams and getting to know people. So it was a lot like in a short period of time, but a really incredible experience. So for anybody that is familiar with White Rock, I think people don't last very long there. And so I was let go after about 3 years. And at that point, it was very challenging, where there was just a lot of disagreements and conflicts, and that and burnout, and just, it was not a good situation. Very long hours. And so it is very stressful to go through being let go, and you go through all the emotions. But the emotion I remember the most out of all of this was waking up the next day and not having to go into the office, and how amazing that felt.
Yeah, like
that
as much
sense
as
of
that's
relief.
like a challenging situation, like I know what you mean of like, okay, well now we get to like, I can breathe for a second. I appreciate you even bringing that up though, because like a lot of people don't talk about sometimes the situations where you are let go. And I know you've talked about it before, but how did that, I guess, like change, I guess, your perspective moving forward, or just what you kind of went through that to kind of come out on the other side? And I appreciate it, because I know a lot of people don't like to talk about these types of things.
So you go through all the emotions. Like there's the anger, there's the like, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to support myself? I'm here in the city on my own. Like, what is going to happen next? But I have, like, you also develop incredible friendships when you're in those very stressful work environments. So
you're like trauma bonding a little bit.
Exactly. And so some of my best friends have come out of that experience. So that's really when I realized the importance of a network, where suddenly all these people are rallying around you and like, okay, it's going to be okay, and we're going to figure something out. And it had happened just before the summer. So I just, after sort of taking some time to reflect, I was like, and in speaking to people and taking their advice, they were like, take some time off and just think about what you gained from those experiences and what do you want to do next, and then have some fun, because I really hadn't had fun in the city and enjoyed the city, because I went from not financially being able to afford anything in my first job, and then getting to this job and finally like making some money and taking on some additional responsibility, and getting to a certain place where I could be more comfortable, but never having any time to do anything fun and go out and just even have spare time. Like I hadn't had spare time in so long. And so, so I had a really fun summer with some friends and spent a lot of time enjoying life. I had bought a place, and so had moved downtown, was in a condo, and was really being able to start enjoy the city and explore different neighborhoods and go and do some traveling. And then also took some time to just reflect on what is it that I want to do next. And coming through that, and this was also really reinforced in my next role at Pure Industrial. I liked working for smaller companies where I could have my hands on everything. And it had gotten to the point where at White Rock, where we were so big that I couldn't have my hands in everything and sort of fully understand everything anymore. And that's fine. I get that people do have to move up and sort of, there are different people in different roles for that. But that was really where I liked to be. And so from that, then had moved to Pure Industrial, so I was employee number 2. So I was off.
Number 2?
Yes, here in Toronto.
That's wild.
So they had, because they originated out of Vancouver, and so they had a team out of Vancouver, but then there was one individual here in Toronto, and so I was brought on. They didn't even have an office, so it was finding an office and setting that up, then building up the team, and they were also on that same path of like, okay, we had sort of been this smaller, we stabilized assets that was just sort of as a REIT is, creating enough dividends, but wanted to grow that platform. And so that was solely focused on industrial. And so just was started and got to do the same thing again, going across the country, assisting on the acquisition side, but also running the asset management and leasing platform. And so originally that was just me, and then started to build up teams. And we did the same thing where we internalized accounting, internalized property management, started building up those teams as we continued to acquire assets.
Like to build is what I'm getting from you.
Yeah. And just being able to, because that's where you get to understand the assets when you're involved on the acquisition. You get a really great understanding, and then that just makes it transitions well into the asset management of like, okay, we've done all this research and this is why we're acquiring the asset. Now let's put that plan into place and make sure that we've got great stabilized leases, again, being a REIT, so that that stabilized cash flow is really important. And so, so that's how I landed at Pure Industrial and got to know, I said that like that 6 months between White Rock and Pure Industrial, that was where I spent a lot of time sort of thinking about where do I want to go, who do I want to work for, and what's really important to me and what excites me. And so got me to that place where there was also significant growth there. And so from there, went and started a REIT with a couple of individuals, because again, take it back to even like as small as you can possibly go at that point, and then build it up. And it wasn't the right time in the market for that. When we had started with that idea, the market was very open to a bit of a riskier small cap investments, and then had transitioned, because it's 2013 at this point, and where that just wasn't, the market moved away and wanted that more stable cash flow and safer, secure investments. So it wasn't the right time, but we were able to sell that REIT, and then moved into a couple different consulting roles. And so what I have learned about myself is resilient, and I can figure things out. And I think that that's partly from my upbringing, and just sort of, you have to learn how to do hard things. And so
I honestly live by that mantra, because you do, like, you have to push yourself. And you like, I feel like sometimes you like don't even know what you don't know and like what you're capable of until you're kind of put into these positions. And it's with the mindset that you have and the work ethic you have, and just even how you're talking about all of these things you've gone through, like, feels like you could just do, there's nothing you can't do.
There are certain limits, but I can,
like, for the most part, like, you
figure it out.
For sure.
And I think the lessons that I've also learned through all of this, and I'm not saying, like, there definitely have been very hard times, and I've questioned, what am I doing? But what I have realized is no one cares about your career more than you do, and nor should they. But sometimes you can be the woe is me situation, and you're like, somebody needs to do something about this. But no, you need to take control of it, and you need to figure out, okay, am I happy here? Am I not happy here? And what do I need to do about it? And sometimes we just don't take the time to reflect on that enough. Like, we just get caught in the like, okay, this is, I should be happy I have a job, and I'm just sort of, and sometimes that is the situation, but we just get caught up in the like, I just need to keep doing this even though I'm not really happy about it. And so sometimes you just need to pop your head up and be like, okay, like, why am I not happy, and could I be happier doing something else, and can I make changes?
I do, like, especially in the industry that we're in, like, it's just so go all the time that like you sometimes forget that like you do have a choice, and you can decide what makes the most sense for you. But it can be easy to kind of get bogged down and forget about that. And no, that's great that you've kind of been able to figure that out through all of this. And
it's also like, especially in some of those transitions and sort of taking on some of those consulting roles, it wasn't necessarily where I was like, I feel so passionate about this. It was like, no, this is what I need to be doing right now. And that always has led to something that I then get very excited about. So it's sort of taking on the opportunities that are in front of you right now, even though that might not be exactly where it is like you want to be here. And sometimes you have to zigzag and take a few different paths to get to where you're going. And so I think the other message is being open-minded and taking the opportunities that are in front of you and see where that takes you.
That's great advice. I feel like I can use that advice for my transitioning. My last couple of years have been trying to figure that out too. So
but I think that it's really about building blocks, right? And I say that I get asked a lot of sort of from people that are coming up through the industry, and I love how curious they are, and they ask much better questions than I ever did at that age. But it's really about the experiences, and in real estate, and I've worked in a number of different asset classes. It's about, there's always something that you're going to take from that experience that's going to make you better at the next thing that you're doing. So it's about building blocks. And so that's why, like, you cannot be too focused on one specific thing. And it's good to be driven, and it's good to have a goal. But there's so many different things that you can do here that are going to make you better at wherever it is you're trying to go.
Yes. So I kind of want to lead into a bit of like mentorship and what that means to you. And one thing I want to comment on is you doing this podcast, which I am so grateful for, because I've just learned so much from you. But you were a bit hesitant to do this podcast. We've kind of talked a bit about how this wasn't necessarily a platform that we had when we were kind of coming up in the industry. But yeah, I am curious, like, what your thoughts are on having these types of conversations. And
Yeah, so a few things in there. And maybe I'll just start with the mentorship piece first. And yeah, I never really felt that I had a mentor, but I learned so much from people along the way. There's always, you can take something from, whether it was a quick conversation and maybe they didn't mean it to be anything more than what it was, but it resonated with me, and it was something that sort of helped me. And I have a lot of, it's been more about key people in my life at certain points that have helped me. And as you said, podcast didn't exist when we were coming up, or I'm older than you are, when I was coming up through my career.
Me neither, though. No, I'm not young.
And so it's, I spend so much time listening to podcasts, and I love that you can get so many different pieces of advice. You can use it in so many different ways, and it's just a quick thing that you can dive in on. And there are so many different podcasts out there that you can usually find what you need at that time. And so I've used it and feel that it's such a great resource to me now. And so when you approached me about this, yes, it was hesitant. Yes, it's not something that, just public speaking in general is not something that I like to do. But I constantly want to challenge myself. And the only way you get better at something is by diving in and trying it in safe spaces. And so I felt that this was a safe space. I felt that it could be a conversation. So thank you for making it approachable. And I'm so curious about people's stories. And
me too. That's why I wanted to do this.
Yes. And so if my story can resonate with somebody, just one person in one small way, then I think that this has all been worth it. And plus we just get to hang out and have a fun conversation.
Love it. Yeah. Always love spending time with you. Well, no, I appreciate that. And so I guess because you haven't had one core mentor, how have you, like, when you're going through a situation, you need to make some hard decisions, who's your sounding board? How do you go through that? And what has, I guess, replaced not having a mentor then?
Yeah, I think going back to, I've made some incredible friends. Most of my friends are in real estate because I've just collected them in the different roles that I'm in, and just, it's a very social industry. So I feel incredibly fortunate that people are so welcoming and open and to making new friends, because making new friends when you're older is very hard.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's an industry full of really good people, and I feel strongly about, if you're a good person, you're going to attract that energy. And I hope and I think that I've been successful at doing that and bringing a lot of people into my circle. And from that, I feel like I've almost created my personal board of directors, as I like to call it, where you have friends
that's great.
that you can count on they're in different industries, they're different parts of their career, and where you can have really authentic, real conversations with them about something that you're going through. And I think it's important to have those people within your own organization, but also outside of your organization, and in different areas of the business, because perspective is so important at the same time. And with that group, you have to a trustworthy group. So these, especially depending on some of those conversations that you're having, are you thinking of moving, or are you going through something really challenging? You need to have a trust factor. So that's incredibly important. And I know that I have found some friends that are a safe space where we can do that. And it's not just a sounding board for challenges, but it's also you're championing your success of having somebody's in the room when you're not there who can stand up for you or can flag something. And just be supporters. And I think that sometimes there's a bad rap in the industry of women not supporting each other. And no, like I have not experienced that. I have always had really been very fortunate to be surrounded by people that are there to support me and encourage me and help me along the way, but can also be somebody that puts up their hand to be like, don't think that this is the right thing for you right now, and give you an honest opinion. That's all I ask for people. I want,
for sure.
I try to be trustworthy and honest. I want the same thing from others. And so,
well, I find that sometimes too, like where you actually get the most out of it is like when people aren't telling you what you want to hear, and like they actually are giving you that sound advice that like you might not necessarily get to on your own. You know it, but like you need that from other people.
Yeah. So I think that's really what has helped me and allowed me to get to where I am now, is by having a really core group of people in that personal board of directors of like friends that can be there to support me along the way and highlight different opportunities. And like I said, by having somebody in the room when you're not there and knowing like, okay, you would be really great for this, and putting up their hand and passing it along and making connections. And I try to do the same to other people.
So there's a couple things that I kind of want to touch on. You had briefly just mentioned that like sometimes women in the industry don't support each other. And I mean, the reality is like you and I are women in the commercial real estate industry. So just as a whole, like how has your experience been being a female in commercial real estate?
Yeah, and so I started in the industry over 20 years ago, and it was very different then than it is now. And there are a lot more women in the industry, and I am so excited to see that. And I love that there's so many different platforms to encourage women and support them. But honestly, I've never felt that it was a challenge for me. And I think that that's also growing up on a farm. Like I've always been treated as an equal. Like barn tours are barn tours. Like you do what you need to do, right? It doesn't matter. And so I just came into this from that perspective as well of, okay, like we're all here at the table. And yes, I'm not saying that I didn't have challenges and there weren't hard times and there weren't times when I was frustrated and feel like my voice wasn't heard. But that just motivated me to become better or become more thoughtful in my delivery or taking the approach. And I've just learned that everybody brings such unique characteristics and skill sets to the table. So lean into what you're good at.
Exactly.
Figure out what it is. And that's going to be different for
regardless
men and
of gender,
women.
like male or female.
Exactly. So you're always going to have a different perspective and a different take on something. And we need those different ideas at the table. It's not going to be beneficial if we're all thinking the same way.
For sure.
So I think it's really focusing on what am I good at? What do I bring to the table? What is my skill set? Lean into those things. Women can be more empathetic. There's certain things that are going to be more valuable. So don't shy away from that. So just figure out who you are and embrace that.
For sure. And I guess like maybe not so much like advice for women in the industry, advice for newcomers in this industry or people that are like trying to figure out their careers right now. And have you kind of fallen into a mentor role at all?
Sure. So maybe I'll address just people coming up in the industry and advice for them. I would say just be curious. As I said earlier, it's not about, and I've also mentioned that I'm just so impressed by this younger generation and how determined they are, and they come in, and there's more real estate programs now. So a lot of them no, this is where I want to be. I'm coming into real estate and this is what I want to do. So I think it's to be open-minded, be curious, try a little bit of everything. And so it's great to have that goal of this is where I would like to be, but be open to all those other opportunities along the way. Build that baseline of skill set. I say to everybody, be an analyst, understand the numbers, because those are really the fundamentals.
The core of it.
That's going to take you far in sort of any direction that you end up in this industry. And so just and talk to people. Like networking, I know everybody says to network, and I did not like it. I
hated it at the beginning too.
Yes,
I really did.
It was very hard for me. I was very shy, and I still get some anxiety, but not as much as I used to. I used to have panic attacks being in a large room full of people. Like it's just, So
I still sometimes get that too, walking in. I'm like, oh, who do I know in here?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's that like just, instant, like,
yes.
Even though you're very great at it, like you've built this insane network, but yeah, it is scary.
You learn what works, right? Like, so always go to an event with a person so that you never feel like you're standing in a room by yourself and feel overwhelmed by that. So you learn these things. But by being in those rooms and meeting different people, and it is about the connections, and like, part of why I tell my story is I didn't come up through this industry. So it's not that you need to know people coming in, but once you are in this industry, making those connections is very important. And that's what's going to lead you to different opportunities.
I can second that too. Yeah, I knew no one when I moved here too. And you really do have to put yourself out there and just kind of have the confidence to kind of get out of your own way a bit to broaden that perspective in your network. And
in some ways, this industry makes that very easy because there are so many events. It's an incredibly...
Too many sometimes.
It's an incredibly social industry, which is amazing. But yes, it's also, you have to learn boundaries. Because you can be somewhere every night, you can be doing something. So it's figuring out where are you going to get the most value, or what is the most important thing to you right now.
So why don't we touch on, like, even just talking about like balancing your time? How do you feel about work-life balance? Because that, I know that's I didn't even know that was a thing before. And I think now, like, I also listen to a lot of podcasts, and everyone's striving for work-life balance, but that hasn't been my perspective. What do you take? What's your take on it?
So I heard the phrase, and I cannot remember who to coin the phrase to, but work-life fulfillment. So it's figuring out, okay, because the two are so intertwined in this industry, and so it's never going to be a 9-to-5 job, but there's a lot of flexibility at the same time. So there are going to be times when it is much busier, depending on if you're working on a deal, you're going through reporting, like there's always something, but then there's going to be times when it is a bit quieter, so knowing when to take those quiet times. But also because, and just this is me speaking personally, because a lot of my friend group is in real estate, like, so going for a brunch on Saturday afternoon with some girlfriends, we are talking about work, but we're also talking about life. So it becomes intertwined, right? Sure. And so it is a balancing act. And for me, it's just, the lines are very blurry.
And do you think that that's something that people that are in the industry that want to be in this industry long term, do you think that's something they should be doing? Like my life's that way too. It's very woven, personal and work life. But is that the key to success in this industry, or?
I think in some ways it is, and that can be defined in different ways for everyone. And maybe it's not going and having the brunch on a Saturday in your personal time, but it is realizing that there are going to be times that in the evening you should be out and be taking part in certain events and meeting people and or celebrating a deal or talking about a deal, or it is a way of getting to know people more personally. And I think that that's also what is great about this industry is
deals.
And so it is being able to have a real conversation with people when you understand a little bit about them.
For sure.
And so that goes a long way, and you have to figure out what makes you comfortable, because all of this is not about listening to it and doing what I do. It's doing what makes you feel comfortable. And so it's trying different things. That's why I say be curious, go out and try something. You don't know till you try it, and see how that works for you, and figure out that right balance of spending time with people outside of work, or going to these events, or just getting to know your coworkers and other people in the industry.
Okay, I want to be mindful of your time, but I do have kind of just a couple closing questions and kind of reflection questions for you. More so, I guess, because you have built a very successful career. What does the next 20 years look like for you? And do you set goals for yourself regularly? What does that process look like if you do set goals? And kind of how do you see the next part of your career kind of panning out?
Big question.
I know, I'm sorry.
And in some ways it's almost because I've just passed the 20-year mark in my career, which is really quite astonishing in some ways. But also I look at everything that I've done in those 20 years. So that excites me for what I can do in the next 20 years.
Yeah, it is. When you break it down in time blocks like that, it's like, look at how far it's come.
Yeah. And so it's not that I have a specific goal that I'm working towards, but I look at everything that I have learned in this time. And one of the beautiful things about this industry is you can constantly be learning. Like when I came to Carttera, I'd never worked in development before, and then realized that that's what I love. There's many things that I love about my current job, but getting to work in development and constantly being able to take what I've learned from one development and apply that to the next, you're constantly getting to sort of recreate and better yourself and better the project and improve processes and everything else. So there's constantly opportunities to learn in this industry, and that's why and I'm very grateful for the opportunities to be on advisory boards. I look at that as another extension of, okay, I really like what I'm doing at Carttera, and in the past I have moved around a lot. So by being on boards, and you had talked about mentorship before, I am part of a number of mentorship programs because I feel very strongly about being that resource for people that might need it. By doing all of these other things, it keeps my brain going. I'm continuing to learn. I'm continuing to be challenged in different ways, and also meeting people outside of my organization and gaining different perspectives. So it's not directly answering your question, but
it is. I even know when we first met, I think you were taking a course to prep you to get on boards too. So like that obviously was something that you worked towards and put the time and effort into kind of making and being able to achieve that. So it does answer my question because it wasn't that easy of a question.
But so it comes down to always challenging myself, and to go back to, do I set goals? And I'm not really, I don't sit down and make New Year's resolutions. It's more reflection, and that's something that's come with age for me, is taking the time to reflect on, yes, this is how far I've come. Maybe I didn't achieve all the things that I had sort of set out to achieve last year or whatever it was, but there's always a reset button. There's always a way of like, okay, why didn't that happen?
Ongoing and bettering yourself.
Maybe that's changed, or maybe I want to pivot a bit more into this direction. But then that also comes from asking people questions and being out there, or like, how can I help you? Or what can I be doing? What do you need right now? What other opportunities are out there? So kind of going back to that, keeping an open mind. And I'm super passionate about this industry and love the opportunities that exist here. And I think if you're putting that energy out there, you're going to get things back.
For sure, and I guess just kind of last question here. If there's, I guess, one insight or lesson or piece of advice for anyone that is listening, either something that we've already covered or haven't, like what do you want them to take away from listening to this episode with you?
I think it's you don't need to have a clear plan, and that sort of the be curious sort of weaves into that as well. Like if I again reflect back on my career, I literally just came here with the goal of like, I want to work in Toronto in an office building, and then sort of pieces began to fall into place as you start creating it. And it doesn't need to be that broad, so I do encourage people to have something a bit more specific than that. But I think people can get too caught up in like, I want to do this, I want to be in this, I want to be in this job and have this title and do this and make X amount of money. And it's good to be motivated, but it's also good to realize the opportunities that are in front of you, and just be open-minded on what that looks like, and be open to making mistakes and kind of going off on this little path over here, and what are you going to learn there? And as long as you kind of bring that back, but also
there's a lot of clarity that comes from making mistakes too. It really is.
Because it's going to happen. You're going to learn something from it. There's going to be a lesson, and most of the time they're not as big as you think that they are, or detrimental as you think that they are. And then also lean on the people around you. And that took me some time to learn, because I am independent and think that I can get things done on my own, but be open to taking advice.
Challenge.
So take advice.
Women do,
talk to people and get different perspectives. And you don't necessarily need to take them, but you can usually get something out of each of those. That sort of, and then you can cobble all of that together to decide how you want to move forward on something.
Yeah. That's great. Nice. Well, thank you, Heidi, so much for being here and doing this today. I kind of end every podcast with a little rapid fire.
Bring it.
So what's a bucket list item that you have?
Well, so I'm actually doing that. I'm leaving for a trip to Italy next week,
Yes, you
and
are,
so
next
yes,
Wednesday.
and so that has been on my list, and just traveling in general, because like I said, it wasn't something that we had the opportunity to do whenever I was growing up. So there's so much of the world to see, and that sort of goes to just even real estate as well,
Yeah.
of like seeing other parts of the world and being curious about cultures and people. And I'm a bit of a foodie, so trying out different food and wine, and just seeing other parts of the world.
Okay, so if you're a foodie, 2 questions on that one then for this rapid fire. What is the best meal you've ever had?
Meal I've ever had. You know, I'm more of an experienced person. I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. And so I think I'm very much about, like, yes, the food needs to be great, but everything about
the ambiance, the service.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm maybe just going to call out one of my favorite restaurants, which is Grey Gardens. And
that is one of my favorites.
Yes. And I just think everything about
so good. Yeah.
The menu is amazing. The wine is amazing. The space. And I'm happy every time I'm there.
Yeah, amazing. Yes. I was going to say, what's a hidden gem in Toronto? I don't know if that, in addition to Grey Gardens.
Well, I think, and I might not necessarily go food here as much as I love food, but what I love to do is just, there are so many parks in so many neighborhoods, and so I think it's just exploring, like what I like to do if I don't have a weekend plan. It's sort of be a tourist in your own city and go and like check out different places. And so I found some, like even just going to Allen Gardens on an afternoon and walking through the greenhouse, or like going through High Park, and there's so many little trails in there. So just like explore your own city.
Love that. If not real estate, what would you be doing? And I don't know if you can answer that, because I don't know if you did that, or do you have any like passion projects that you would love to do down the road?
If I wasn't in real estate, and again, I've never gone down the road enough to know if I could actually do this, but I would likely be an event planner. Like I love putting together ideas for things and organizing.
You're so similar.
And so that is like, that was always my like, okay, I think I can go down that road, but I love what I'm doing enough now that I've never had to spend a lot of time thinking about that.
Yeah. Okay. 2 more. What's a podcast that you recommend, since you're big in podcasts?
There's a couple that I always like Adam Grant's perspectives on things.
So do I. He is amazing.
And Brene Brown was one of my favorites, so I'm very sad that she does not have a podcast anymore. Diary of a CEO, oftentimes, has some really great guests. And so I'm always just kind of going through and looking for others as well, of Mel Robbins. There's so many. Yes, exactly. So it's sort of, as I said, it's like kind of going through and finding the podcast that I need right now. But those are sort of some go-tos.
Yeah. Do you have like a quote or like mantra that you live by, or that you always kind of find yourself coming back to?
No, not really. It's just more, I think it's, I try to just give myself grace, and it's always like every day can be a restart of like, okay, that happened yesterday. What am I going to do today? Cool. What am I?
Okay. And then when you're at the end, close to the end of your life, how would you define success? What needs to kind of be?
Oh, you're getting so philosophical.
I know. I'm always trying.
I think it's surrounding yourself with the things that you love, right? And so that being people, and just making that core group of friends and family, and that's amazing nieces and nephews, and just all of these people that kind of give you a sense of community, but also being able to do the things that I enjoy. So being able to travel, and knowing that I sort of left my mark in what I'm doing today.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Heidi. Yes, I'm very jealous of your Italy trip. Have a great time. Have an Aperol Spritz for me.
Just one.
Just one. No, I really appreciate your time today. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you for having me.